Welcome, everyone, to our third edition of The Black View. I'm Amari Jahi Aden, the executive producer of the show, and I would like to thank every one of you that have supported our show through your subscriptions, your likes, and your comments on our YouTube channel. We created The Black View because it is our opinion that the present broadcasting networks present news and social issues from the perspective and the opinion of their owners, which are mostly Jewish and European. It is our opinion that there is a black perspective that has been suppressed. The Black View, on the other hand, is the outlet where our voices, thoughts, and opinions can and will be heard. Now, do I anticipate pushback from these broadcasting networks and their affiliates? Of course I do. But we intend to move forward with what we have, and with your help and your assistance, we can create our own broadcast network like the Hispanic brothers and sisters have done with Telemundo. Now, this show that you are about to view is a very important show because mental health disorders have not properly been addressed in our communities. It is our opinion that mental health disorders is the fuel behind many, but not all, of the crimes and domestic issues that we are experiencing. This subject matter is so vast that we anticipated expanding 2 to 3 episodes of this show. So get your notepads out and be prepared to pause the show and jot down any information provided that will assist you, as well as all of us, in identifying mental disorders in ourselves, our families, and our friends. You ready? All right, let's go.
Welcome to The Black View. I'm your host, Sherry Soul. This is Minister Taharka Shakur, Brenda Robinson, and Chicago's own legendary sax preacher. The Black View does not claim to speak for all of the community, but for what's going on in our cities, our states, and us all around. So thank you again for coming through, and today we are here with a very, very interesting topic. You all have experienced this, or you know somebody that has experienced it, mental disorders. So I don't know if you guys wanted to kind of talk about some of your own personal experiences, but I'll start off by talking about mine. I'm careful because I don't know who's going to view this, and I wouldn't want to offend anybody. But I will say this, that there is a tremendous amount of mental illness in the black community, and not enough awareness that it's there. Because a lot of times we put it off as just, how people naturally act, or this is my crazy sister, or my crazy uncle, or my crazy brother, without understanding that, these are serious matters, that people could be going through, whether it be PTSD, neurotic disorders, and so much that we have to bring to you guys' attention today. So, this is a sensitive subject for me because I particularly know some close folks that are dealing with mental illnesses and disorders that they are not aware of, or they are aware of, but they are not accepting. Therefore, other people, such as myself, and people that they love, suffer from it. So, that's a little bit that I wanted to chime in with it, but you're welcome to share what you got.
I'll share a little bit. One, on the need for this conversation to even be had inside of the black community, and why we are even having this conversation on the show, because it is not talked about, as much as it needs to be. We all struggle with a trauma, no matter what the trauma is based on. It affects us mentally, and a lot of us ignore that. I remember when I was younger, I actually suffered with depression and suicidal thoughts. From about the age of 7 to literally 19, I attempted suicide multiple times, but no success. Thank God.
Yeah, we continue.
No success,
Thank
right? But never really dealing with that trauma, and never really having the conversation with anybody. Never really talking about what I was going through mentally, and seeing so many people around me, knowing I have a sister who suffers from bipolar disorder. I have other family members who have their own mental problems. My grandmother killed herself from schizophrenia. We know that is more a deeper level of a mental disorder, but to the extent of it, it affects all of our families. And for us to have this conversation, it's very important to deal with a topic such as this, to really bring light to it and show that there are opportunities and things for us to really deal with it and talk about it.
Yes, absolutely. Wow, thank you for sharing that love. I mean, that hits home because I, as well as many people, know people who have committed suicide or attempted to do that, and thank God you're here to say that because, you know, I don't know if you felt like you had somebody that cared about you enough, you know, for you to be able to come to them with what you were going through. And that's another thing. A lot of people don't feel like they have the support, and they're trying to, you know, get that from parents and from peers and other folks around them when those people are dealing with their own things and they don't know how to be a support system. And it's not intentional because a lot of times people don't know until it's too late what's going on with somebody. So that's a real thing. That hits home. You know, rest in peace to the people that I've lost, that I've, you know, I wouldn't say they were necessarily me. I wouldn't be as selfish to say that I lost them. Their families lost them because, you know, they had children, and a lot of times people can do drugs or they're dealing with, again, depression, and they get into a dark space, and they don't know how to get out of it. So that's why today we wanted to identify some of them. So this is definitely, you know, a need to discuss. So does anybody else want to share anything about your own personal experiences?
Yeah, I just want to say that I remember when I was 13 years old. At 13, I just got a little wild, and I used to go to my friend's house, and I had a curfew, and I would always miss curfew, and I would come home, and my mother would whoop my butt, and the next day I would get up and go and do the same thing again. Come home, get my butt whooped. The next day I got up and did the same thing again. I didn't think anything was wrong with that other than that I would be in trouble from my mom.
Yeah.
But as I got older, or even right then, my mom one day said to me, "I don't know what's wrong with you, and maybe I need to take you somewhere." And my 13-year-old self sat back, and you know, I didn't talk back to my mom like.
Yeah.
So I sat back, and in my head, I was saying, "She should really take me somewhere." But you know, that was like a threat to me. That wasn't. My mother wasn't serious about that, and she didn't think that was anything mental. She just thought I was just being hard-headed, and I wanted to do what I wanted to do. But I was sitting there wanting her to see why, because I mean, I didn't like getting my butt whipped every time, but you know, but I didn't stop, and I remember that to this day, and I remember that my mom didn't do anything about it, and to this day, I think people still they shy away from that. They don't want to talk about that something may be wrong. They see their children. Mothers don't want to say that their children something's wrong with them because we call it, you know, like so
crazy.
But it's not really crazy. It's problems that need to be addressed.
Yes.
So do you know exactly what that disorder might have been?
No, even though I'm older, no, when I look back, no, I don't. But I did think that it was something wrong with me because I really didn't want to keep getting my butt whipped. And so yeah.
So do you find yourself still at this age doing things that maybe you get reprimanded for, but you continue doing?
No, no one recommends me.
No, I mean,
So I would equate that more to something that was behavioral, and it is true that a lot of children do go through behavioral, disorders. Nevertheless, in your case, might have very well not been a disorder. It
That's
was
what I'm thinking.
it was
It wasn't a
puberty.
disorder.
It was you know, liking this boy, and hit the energy and the butterflies of seeing him was more important than getting your
Yes,
butt
there
beat.
you go.
But I will tell you the valid point that she made, as she has stated, is that, you know, she felt like she really needed help because she didn't want to get her butt whooped, but her mom didn't take it as serious. But you're good.
Okay.
I did want to mention some of these disorders. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, you know, everybody spoke on them in situations with mental health and whatnot.
Yes.
In my case, the only one that comes to mind is my current situation, and that is that I'm currently dealing with some people around me that has mental issues, schizophrenia, paranoid schizophrenia, whatever it is, maybe sociopath also. A couple of cases of paranoia, not paranoia, but bipolarism.
Yeah.
And earlier today, I knew I was on the phone because a person kept calling me all the time, and they be so paranoid that what I do is calm them down. And I talk to them about the peace within and things like that. And by the time they get off the phone, to me, I believe I saved them from getting in some sort of trouble for the rest of the course of their day. And so if I could just be that kind of a buffer to help a person slow down some of that seizure activity in their brain, then I think that I'm doing a good work in the community. So I don't turn people away because they have these challenges. But if they can seek solace in having a conversation with me, then I'm always willing to be that person.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. And so that's really merely all they need, somebody to be able to talk someone off the ledge or just kind of put them back in focus.
Yeah.
I did want to mention some of these disorders so I can bring it to your attention. Neurotic disorders, PTSD, depression/suicide, anxiety disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, bipolar disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, dementia and Alzheimer's, eating disorders, and a plethora of many more.
And you know what?
But that's pretty much, yes.
That attention deficit, I question that one sometimes.
Yeah,
Because of them
me
giving
too.
out children this Ritalin.
The
and things
Ritalin,
like
oh
that.
yeah.
And then they don't want to shut down the candy store that they stop off at right on
Yeah,
the corner before
yeah.
they get there.
Mhm.
Which is going to get them bouncing off the wall in the first place with all that sugar.
Yeah,
See what I mean?
another
So,
theory is
I look
some
at
of
that.
yeah. Another theory is some of our children. They're very supreme. You know, they have a lot of energy, and it doesn't always get channeled the right way that it needs to be. So then they end up being diagnosed with ADHD. But I did want to, get into some of these, brother, because we're gonna get into that, like some of these disorders and them being mistaken. Nevertheless, I did want to kind of break some down for a minute. Neurotic disorder are mental or physiological, are mental or psychological problems that tend to revolve around anxiety and distress over certain circumstances. They stand apart from other mental health conditions because they don't usually have outward manifestations like hallucinations or delusions. Neurotic people find themselves overthinking, over-worrying, unable to let things go, or preoccupied with their health, their job, or their opinions of their friends and loved ones. Everyone has quirks, but neurosis interferes with work, relationships, and your overall state of mind. You're neurotic is often used as an insult, but it's actually a mental health descriptor. Being neurotic is not easy, but there is plenty of hope. There are always ways to manage neurosis. And one of the most important is seeing a therapist to gain emotional insight. So, neurosis, neurotic disorders, that's something that I mentioned when we kind of were brainstorming. I personally know people that are dealing with this and are not aware. Maybe they are aware because someone kind of told me that they are. And the huge issue with having someone that we know or either dealing with some of these mental illnesses is how many of us are dealing with them the way accordingly. How are we dealing with them? Are we constantly living life and getting into altercations with people, losing family, losing friends, losing relationships because we don't know what's going on or the other people don't know what's going on? We don't want to deal with that person because they're just crazy. They might, be a person that in some cases I know people who have dealt with schizophrenia that have been some of the most amazing. We're going to go to a quick break, and then I got a very special guest. Thank you.
You know that feeling where your thoughts scare you or make life tough? Sometimes it feels like no one else in the world has those thoughts or feelings. No one seems to know how difficult it is to deal with your feelings. And it's not easy to share your deepest secrets. You might think something is wrong with you. Or you might worry what other people think. And all of that makes your thoughts and feelings worse. Our culture has created this environment of shame. Until the 1960s, society sent people away if they had challenges managing their thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Over time, we learned that we didn't have to be afraid. We learned how to help people get better. We became hopeful. But there are remnants of those images in our culture today. Which is why some people still feel uncomfortable talking about it. The stigma has taken new forms too. With more access to more people all the time, it can seem like the world is telling us it's not okay to be anything but perfect. The truth is, everyone has thoughts or feelings that can be hard to deal with. So why do we make it so difficult on ourselves by judging others who could be going through the same challenges we are? What if, instead of seeing labels, we saw people who are struggling and could be there for them so they didn't feel so alone? What if we looked past our fear of mental health and started to talk about it in a constructive way? What if, as a society, we used empowering words and healthy images to help people feel supported? Maybe then more of us could feel comfortable telling others when we're having a hard time. Maybe more people would get the help they need. And maybe one day we won't have to talk separately about mental health and physical health, but just health. The truth is, each of us has the power to change our culture. Will you join us?
Welcome back, everybody, to the Black View. I have a very special guest with us today. Her name is Mary Love, and she's a behavioral network consultant. Let me get it right, behavioral health network consultant. So, Mary, if you don't mind, can you give us some of your background?
Sure. Thank you for that introduction, Sherry. I'll share a little background with you. As a network behavioral health consultant, I work for a major healthcare organization, and I serve as a liaison between that healthcare organization and the provider community. And what I mean by provider community, I'm speaking of the behavioral health hospitals and facilities and those professionals that work within that environment.
Yes.
So we collaborate together to try to bridge some of the gaps and to alleviate some of the barriers that prevent individuals who are either seeking to obtain mental health services or are already obtaining mental health services, to just bridge some of those gaps. And some of those barriers that they experience may include access Some individuals do not have transportation, they may not have income, they may not have insurance to have those services. Another barrier we are faced with is sometimes when they do seek care, they don't do follow-up care. So then in turn, that ends up with them being readmitted to the hospital, and then which runs up healthcare costs. And also when individuals are impacted by mental health illnesses, they also sometimes allow their other health conditions to not be taken care of because they don't go to the doctor, they don't manage their diabetes, they don't manage their hypertension very well. So as network consultant in the healthcare industry, we know that thousands of lives can be saved and improved by aggressively attacking mental illnesses.
Mary Love, instead of calling you maybe a behavioral health network consultant, maybe mental health network consultant. So how would you describe what mental health is?
Okay, Sherry, mental health includes social, emotional, and psychological well-being. And this affects how individuals act, how they think, and how they feel. It can also determine how they handle stress, how they relate to other people, and how they make life choices. And it's also, mental health is also very important throughout life, from childhood to adolescence and through adulthood.
So I have a question.
Okay?
With this long, wide range of disorders, I use that term, that I heard our host mention today, along with a plethora of others. For black people, how is it, how can we be helped, black people? And what I mean is that most black men don't go to the doctor to seek no kind of help. They don't even see psychiatrists, and don't say counseling. Not gonna go seek counseling or anything. And I don't believe, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, that there are enough mental health practitioners that are black males, for black males. How can we fix that?
Well, I think that's a great question. And I think your host here, Sherry, this whole topic is also awareness, just bringing awareness to the community. That is one way for it to be helped, and to also to not put such a stigma. Mental health has been stigmatized as, people being crazy.
Yes.
So a lot of people are afraid to seek help because they think it's about them being crazy.
Right.
But mental health does not discriminate. Mental health has nothing to do with character or intelligence. And so bringing awareness would be a really good start, and I think Sherry here is doing just that.
Yes, thank you, Mary Love, and that's what I aim to do, at least, y'all. We all aim to do that today. We want to let you know that whatever you may be going through, or someone that you know, you're not alone, and you need to know some of the symptoms that would, classify you as dealing with a mental or behavioral illness, but it's all the same, mental illness. I did want to kind of go over a few things. Even envious behavior, reacting negatively to neutral events, panicking in relatively non-threatening situations, displaying emotional instability, inability to function in everyday life after an unrelated trauma. A lot of people can say that they are dealing with things like that, but how much does it affect you in your everyday life? When it's affecting you to the point that you know that something is wrong, you're losing friends, family that doesn't want to deal with you. You constantly are getting in arguments with random people, and it's all about the world is against you, and you're really dealing with something, and you have to, be real.
Based on what I've been listening to, I'm being led to believe that grief can be a mental disorder. And the reason I'm saying that because, I've seen a lot of people that grieve for a long time after a loved one was lost.
Yes.
And I've seen many situations where they would be borderline, like snapped out. You know, I know someone that grieved for over a year and a half after their child was, but basically I see the child was killed. And I know we have many grieving mothers whose children were victims of gun violence in our communities. And I've seen some that when they speak to me and we talk, and they just break out in tears again as if it was just fresh, you know. And so, to me, grief could be kind of like a mental disorder because there are some people don't get back in touch with society. I remember at a club I used to play, and it was this lady, she used to be a school teacher. Now, this is the truth, she used to be a school teacher. And she would come into the club all the time, and people would wonder what's the matter with her because she would act so crazy. And when music be playing, she'd be slinging her hair around on the stage and this and that. And they say, well, her daughter died in a fight. And what it was, she ran out the house and left her daughter in there and tried to get back in to save her. And she couldn't. Her daughter was like 6 years old. And she's never been the same since. She's not teaching in school. And she just comes to this club and sit around and she be in her own zone, just doing what she want to do.
And grief.
That's a mental disorder now, right?
Grief can
Grief
lead
turned into a mental disorder.
if someone harbors it too much.
Yeah.
Yes, that is one of the contributing factors for mental illnesses is life experiences, like trauma or abuse.
Yeah.
So that would be considered.
And it
Yeah,
would be
'cause
traumatic
that's trauma.
too.
That's
Yeah.
trauma.
So,
So
So if someone started, so people we see on the streets who are alcoholics and dope fiends and young boys with guns and all of that, can those things be considered, I mean, are they just behavioral, or can it be that something happened at their homes or in their environments that brought them to this, to alcoholism? To things like that, to robbing stores, to doing
Absolutely.
stuff. Can that be, and then therefore now that's just not alcoholism now, right? That's something else going on in our heads.
Yeah, you ask a lot of them, that's actually what they say. They say that they've either been, they lost a parent, let's say with the young boys, some of them they had no parents, or they have a parent.
Or they were in the
They were
system.
raised by their, grandmother, or, raised by the system. You hear from a lot of dope fiends that, and because you know when the crack epidemic happened in the 80s, and around that time you got communities already suffering, so you got escapism. Some of them hop on that, but again, that's probably from a mental disorder, dealing with depression, and depression leading them to feel like they need something to take them out of it, and are willing to give up their life and don't know it, because a lot of times people think certain things that are recreational now are good, but they have to be careful because people are constantly experimenting with people.
Well, to shoot and kill without remorse, what type of mental illness is that?
As we talked about it, that some people become very, what is that? We talked about it. You said it earlier.
No type of remorse at all. Just
Sociopaths.
cold blood
They
shoot.
become sociopaths.
Yeah.
Sociopath is, I don't care about you, nobody cared about me. You didn't care about me when I was dealing with this, when I was being molested, when I was being raped, when I was, so I don't care about you, I don't care about life.
Yep.
You took away somebody I care about, so I'm going to take away someone you care about. But that's still
And it just
grief
keep-
that harbors.
And that's in our community
Yeah.
now.
I
I don't
gotta,
think it's
it's
gang
spiritual,
influence,
too.
but it's not a gang. It's just it's like this payback thing.
Yeah, don't think about
even when we think about that, my big question is, why is it so criminalized in our community? And the reason why I asked that, I just was literally looking at something on Facebook before we started recording about a young man who was caught with heroin, pounds and pounds of heroin, and he only got 6 months of rehab. Now I know that's not a mental thing, but let's think of the mental disorder side of it. Well, a brother who might have killed somebody, might have beat a woman to death, might have strangled another man, might have stabbed somebody to death through a mental disorder, but he might get life in jail. And then you have someone, a Caucasian, who could do the exact same crime, and they're like, well, that was just a mental disorder.
Yeah.
We speak about the Dylan Roof situation. They just said he had a mental disorder. He went into a church and shot up 9 people, but that was just a mental disorder. But let a young man, a young black man, do the exact same thing. He's now a criminal. Why do we, if it's a mental disorder, how? And then this is my question to you more specifically. When we think about mental health, how do we make it an open conversation in our community where we can get the system to not criminalize it so much? How do we take the criminalization off the trauma? Because a lot of our people are just dealing with PTSD in and of itself, coming through slavery, coming through our community, living and looking at how our mothers might have suffered through something, or our father might have not even been there. That's traumatic.
Yes.
Growing up in a home without your father not being there. How do you become a man and you see the examples in your community? Or I know people personally who mother was a prostitute. And they're seeing their mother be used as an instrument of pleasure.
Yes.
And that's it. So then they grow up with this trauma that's all women is. How do we look at these situations and literally see them as trauma and not literally criminalize people as much as the system criminalizes?
I was going to say that sounds like a whole different topic because we get into that thing with racism.
Yeah.
With racism. And
No, but
that's
that's a
Because,
part of this mental stuff. That's
Dealing
real.
with a black
That's
view
real.
perspective of it,
That they always get
that's a
diagnosed
tool
as having mental illness.
that's, or an instrument that's being used by
Yeah.
society to criminalize us.
But then-
Whereas if,
I mean, that's not
if a
racist.
white person does it, it's even with drugs. A drug addict goes to jail that's black, but a drug addict white will go and get help in the treatment center. It's the same thing.
Okay, because that's,
Yeah.
okay.
And
I see
that's
what
true.
you're saying. That's what you're saying. But they
Yeah.
probably have, I'm just saying, it's very hard for somebody to get somebody black to admit they're crazy.
Oh yeah.
Because I
Well,
mean-
most people.
I mean, just to see any
White
type of
people
mental
probably
health.
say,
You
"I
want
don't
to
think
give-
they're
you want me to
necessarily-
give you a real opinion on it? We don't have
Yeah,
to.
and not necessarily saying they're crazy. I mean, I don't mean it like that.
No,
But
no, but
it's
that's
hard
true.
to get
You know,
them
there's
to
something
seek
wrong.
That's
harm.
true.
That
There
they
is
might
something
need
wrong.
to seek
My
help.
schizophrenic
We've been
friend
mentioning
couldn't
that
tell
earlier.
Yeah, you
me
can't tell them, right? You can't tell them, and that's
Right.
Anybody
the
know?
difference?
we don't embrace
So is that the
Well, I'm
I
saying
think
is-
that that's the difference. We don't have to
Yeah.
become stigmatized in our community. That we don't believe that, we have these issues. We think that, these are things we're supposed to, it's supposed to be in the basement. Like, when someone is bipolar, we kind of like sometimes ostracize those even family members. We don't really, you don't see them at family functions. You don't see them, everybody just is kind of like a secret, kind of like she has a problem, her nerves are bad. They termed it as so many different things and it was never addressed. And I think that just has been, from generation to generation.
Yeah.
We just have not been a culture of people that really embraced mental health.
What I'm saying is that if I'm a heroin addict or if I'm a cocaine addict and I get arrested with the drugs on me and I'm arrested and I'm using, not selling, why am I in jail and not in the treatment center?
Right. And then that's a reality. I actually want to
You see what
flip it
I'm saying?
around too and say that a lot of Caucasians, they actually don't admit to their mental illnesses.
No, they
as well.
do. They tend
No.
to more than us. That's why they put them
I said
away.
a lot. I didn't say all.
Okay. Yeah, I know. It just
the
seems
reason
like
why I
that's the
say
first
a lot-
thing they say. I'm crazy. They tell their attorneys to say that they're crazy.
No,
we
truth be
don't.
told, but the reason why I wanted to
We don't.
mention that, we get back to the topic of hate and envy.
Yeah.
Because this goes back to, certain people that decide that they want to shoot up a church. You would know that that person, yes, they're mentally ill. Would they
Right.
proclaim that? Probably not. I'm talking about the young guy who probably just think it's from his hatred for whether it be, Christians or for black people, whatever it may be. There is that seed of hate that festers into other mental illnesses that people can feel like that's why there's hate crimes. People decide I'm going to go kill you because you are another race or you're somebody I don't, rock with or whatever it may be. It's something that a lot of people too, they don't always admit. But like you said, yes, there's a lot of people that they'll, yes,
But you know what?
yes.
No, how do we get the help? How do we get the help? How do we get stuff into our communities?
How about
Yeah,
this? How about
I do
this?
want to give some
How
suggestions.
about
We gotta
this?
get that.
How about this? What's normal?
Exactly. What is normal?
So what are we getting help for?
Point me to a sound
So-
mind. What
Yeah.
is healthy
What
mentality?
do we
Well,
getting help for?
healthy mentalities have a self-awareness too. I mean, when you have self-awareness, then you're able to kind of work on some things and address them, and be able to say, "This is what I'm dealing with." For instance, that aunt that people
Are
call
you
it crazy.
explaining normal?
She's saying, "I'm explaining like what someone
Normal.
Normal.
There's no normal. I guess. There's no normal, but because I wouldn't
No, I was
consider
just
myself
asking.
normal, but that's for my own reasons. So, and other people, they have their own, opinions of self. If you are aware of something that you are dealing with and suffering from, PTSD. Every time I hear a loud noise, I just, like I jump, that's somebody telling you. That way you know that that's what Uncle dealt with. Uncle was in the war, so he has PTSD. But then let's go back to young guys. There's a lot of young men that have seen death and seen so much in front of their faces that they have PTSD. And so they're paranoid. They might excessively smoke and excessively do things that are not healthy for them and can only bring them further and further into that dark space that people get into when they're suffering from mental illness. So I just
And the corporate
particularly...
industry capitalize on it with drugs,
Oh, all of
with
that.
alcohol,
All of that.
and all of those different over-the-counter drugs that they give us. And they only medicating us and making us more, like, it's really, drugs and alcohol is like an anesthesia in the black community.
Yeah, like
It
people
dumbs us
that's-
down, it
they're
numbs
just-
us to reality.
They're just there.
That's what I see it as. So you got now drugs, we got alcohol, we got certain crimes, we got all of this lumped
Yeah.
into mental illness. That's what it sounds
Yeah,
like.
yeah.
Lumped into mental illness.
And even though it goes on in a lot of other families in the black community, we hear about a lot of molestation. Again, it's going on around, all all families of all creeds. But that's a mental disorder too, for people to feel like they have to get into a very devious place sexually, to mess with children, and that's just a reality for a lot of folks. It's a very sensitive subject. Men and women alike have been through this, and that type of thing does not get addressed. That something might have happened to that person, but they might have had a very unhealthy way of approaching sexual energy. And some people don't know how to, forgive those people and even look at themselves as a person that's worthy of being loved just because of what they went through. And sometimes that cycle repeats itself, or people end up, like some men have dealt with men because they feel like that's the first sexual experience they've ever had. This is not an offense to the LGBT community,
That's their jail
although we
stuff.
do know that there are the LB,
And jail,
say it again.
prison and jail.
Prison is
Putting men
a
in
thing.
jail
Yeah.
during their puberty years intentionally.
Yeah, this is true.
Got them coming out with their pants sagging
Yeah.
and wagging and walking like dogs. And all they have to offer.
And some people, and then there's no.
Let me get strong.
You can't tell how someone feels just by looking at them or what they share online. To the outside world, our lives may look perfect, even if in reality they aren't. I'm always worrying about doing well at school, and with the end of year test coming up, I'm not sure how much longer I can cope. My thoughts swarm around my head, sometimes keeping me up all night. Some days it's just all too much, and I feel like I'm lost in space. When I did badly on one of my tests, I just about kept it together until I got home. Then I broke down crying in front of my mum. She listened for a bit, and then she told me that, just like physical health, we all have mental health. It's our feelings, our thinking, our emotions, and our moods. She then said that feeling down, angry, and stressed is a normal part of life. Just like it's normal to feel happy, confident, and carefree sometimes. We all have positive and negative emotions that come and go based on what's happening around us. These are everyday feelings. Good mental health means experiencing negative emotions. It's not always about being happy. Mum can relate to the feelings of stress. So when Mum suggested I take a break from everything and do something I enjoy, I actually took her advice. So I made myself a hot chocolate, snuggled up in a duvet and watched a film. And you know what? Afterwards I felt so much better. Mum should take her own advice.
Thank you for coming back to the Black View, everybody. I just wanted to let you know that mental health, again, is a very serious subject. We don't have enough time to cover it all. So I just wanted to let you know about some of the hotlines that we can make you aware of. Mental health conditions can be treated, and if you are someone that you know needs help, you can talk to them or talk to a healthcare provider. Some symptoms require immediate emergency care. If you or someone you know is thinking about harming themselves or others or attempting suicide, seek help right away. Call 911 for emergency services or go to the nearest emergency room. Call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK. 1-800-273-TALK, that's 8255. Or text the crisis text hotline. Text HELLO to 741-741. Okay? And contact social media outlets directly if you are concerned about a person's social media updates, or dial 911 in an emergency. For more information about how to contact social media outlets, visit the Lifeline support on social media webpage. Take any comments about suicide or wishing to die serious, even if those said by children or adolescents. And even if you do not believe them, as a family member or a friend that will attempt suicide, the person is in distress and can benefit from your help in finding treatment. You can learn more about suicide prevention on NIMH's suicide prevention webpage. They also have a taking control of your mental health tips for taking control of your mental health, tips for talking with your healthcare provider. Okay, let's see. We have a disaster distress hotline, 1-800-985-5990. And that helps with substance abuse and mental health services. And we have a National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Again, that's 1-800-273-TALK. Veterans Crisis Line. This helpline is a free, confidential resource for veterans of all ages and circumstances. Call 1-800-273-8255. Press 1. Text 838255 or chat online to connect with a 24/7 support. And that's for people that are dealing with PTSD and more from being in a war and so on and so forth. And we also have a crisis text line. Text HELLO in bold letters to 741-741 for free and confidential support 24 hours a day throughout the U.S. And once again, you all, there is a Help for Mental Illness webpage that is with NIMH, which is the National, I think I got this, National, is that the Suicide Prevention Hotline? You all, the information will be listed below, so make sure that you really take heed to the information. It is provided for you. We have to come back with this subject. It's a very serious subject, and we weren't able to cover everything because all of us, we have stories that we want to share with you and want to make you more aware of some of these mental illnesses so that we can be a help for you. So make sure you tune in for the next episode of The Black View. We thank you all for tuning in today. Again, I wanted to thank Mary Love for coming through, hopefully contacts, and thank Minister Taharka Shakur, thank Sister Brenda Robinson, and thank the legendary sex preacher. So much love, you all. Peace.
I'm ready to come back.
Oh yeah, be ready.
Auditing is the process of asking specifically worded questions designed to help you find and handle areas of distress. This is done with an auditor, meaning one who listens. An auditor does not offer solutions or advice. They are trained to listen and to help you locate those experiences that need to be addressed. But some experiences are so deeply buried within the mind, they are not easily recalled. Through auditing, one is able to look at their own existence and discover the past experiences that are holding them back against their will. Do you recall a day when you were younger and you woke to find bright dew sparkling on the grass, the leaves, to find the golden sun bright upon a happy world? Do you recall how beautiful and fine it once was? What if life could be that fine again? Is to bring an individual from a condition of spiritual blindness to the joy of spiritual enlightenment and freedom, the long-sought goal of religion since its earliest beginnings.